Hi, welcome to this webinar. This is Sae. I'm going to host this webinar with Payman, and I think you know who is Payman. Hi, Payman.
Hello, thanks for having me. Today we're gonna be hosts to amazing Alex Pierce. He's a head of design
Mhm.
and a great UI UX designer at a company in Netherlands called Instruqt. And let's say hi to him. Hey, Alex.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for giving us the time. And I'm sure lots of people will learn a lot from you. Just to start, can you give us a bit of introduction, your history, how you got here?
Sure. How long do you have? So, hi everybody. My name is Alexander or Alex Pierce. I am, as Payman very kindly shared, the head of design and UX for a startup here in the Netherlands, called Instruqt. I originally come from South Africa, so I've been in the Netherlands for almost 7 years now. I don't speak the Dutch language very well, which is a deep, deep shame of mine at this point that I'm working on. But yeah, so I've been a designer for over a decade now, working originally starting in advertising and moving into the tech space probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Math is not my strong point, neither is counting. So thank goodness Figma has up and down arrows. Yeah, that's about me in a nutshell, I think.
That's great. Did you learn the design in like a college or something?
Yes, well, so I went to, it was called Red and Yellow, School of Magic and Logic. I never heard the end of that one in my last year of high school. But it was a great college. It was primarily focused on advertising at that point. So you would go into various divisions, either it's graphic design and art direction, or it would be more copywriting side, or you went into the more, I would say, customer success or the business orientated side from it. I learned there, what was great about that college was it wasn't actually very regimented. It didn't have a lot of like hard courses. There was basically one class that you had to attend, which was software. So you would learn about different pieces of software. Amazing teacher. She took no nonsense from anyone, but she really gave us a great foundation and a really nice place to learn. But the strength of that college, in my opinion, was the fact that you weren't governed so much. So you actually had to learn to start to think for yourself and so start to manage yourself and to try and figure out where you can have an impact as a individual or professional.
Great, that's great. So after learning the foundations, can you tell us about your working journey, your work experience?
Sure, no problem. So as I said, I started there in South Africa. I got started at Red and Yellow, which was an advertising college, and I moved straight after school. I actually moved into a digital advertising agency. Tech at that point in South Africa, I mean, it wasn't really a thing so much. So a digital advertising agency, there were actually just a couple of them in South Africa. They were the next big thing, I guess. It was quite cool, but I learned a vast range of skills there, and I got an introduction to developers and started to learn and actually gravitated more towards them and spending times with them in a personal time than necessarily the designer teams. I don't know if that's because I was super introverted or if I just liked what they did and thought they were math whizzes and geniuses, and I just had deep respect and a little bit of envy for them, I guess. But so then I was working there for a couple of years, and we actually had a UX department at the company, and it was quite interesting, especially looking back now, because that UX department didn't really have a role. In fact, it fizzled out. It went from being a department into nothing. the assumption there being that you should understand these things or bake them in. But I think the truth was that we didn't really understand user experience, and also user experience didn't really have that much of a role in an advertising agency at that point, especially if, and this is actually why I wanted to move away from advertising, well, for a couple of things. I didn't move away from advertising, I moved towards tech. But it was that projects are short-lived, right? So you work really hard, you invest yourself, you put this labor of love in, and then this project is up for a couple of months, and then it's gone and it's done. And you never really build on top of it, or you never get to take it further. So I guess UX wasn't really a thing, but heard about it at that point, started researching it. I think the first time I heard it, I was very confused. And as a person does when they don't know about something, they go, "This is nonsense." But look at me now, Mom. Was working there for a couple of years. And then my partner got a job in the Netherlands. And at the time, I just come out of a project which I was really, really proud of. It was a project that I'm still very, very proud of. And it had an element of user experience in it, and we actually put it up for nomination, and we won a Webby for it, and I was thrilled. I was super excited, but with that height of elevation came this sudden drop of, now what? You went from up here and this excitement and this really deep thinking about a project back to creating social campaigns. And no disrespect in any way to that, but that wasn't where I wanted to put my energy. It wasn't the thing that made me want to get up in the morning. So I moved across to the Netherlands on a partner's visa. So it was easier for me. I was very lucky that I have a very intelligent partner who's able to get a job across the ocean. But at that point, I was really unsure what I needed to do with my life, what I wanted to do, right? I was looking for jobs. I have that type of personality where I need to support myself, even if you're, as my partner, capable. So the pressure was inside of me, and also this reflection and I think, what do you call it? Remuneration, where you're constantly overthinking and judging. And so I actually was lucky enough to, I didn't want to do an advertising agency. One, I didn't have a portfolio because as designers, you tend to neglect that. So you actually forget about it. But that's an important topic. So I think we should address that later. But I didn't have a portfolio at the time. I started to meet some people through my partner who she met at work, and started talking to them, and a really nice guy, Joran, and he started to try and help me, and he had connections at different advertising agencies. But in discussion and with my partner, I really didn't want to go back to it. That's not what I wanted to do, and I didn't know what I could do. So I kind of looked at my skills. I could create visual assets. That's what was baked in. That's what I was good at. I had that ethic and cooked it out. So an opportunity came up at the company where my partner was working for a little graphic design role. It wasn't a full graphic design. Basically, it was someone they needed to organize the icons for the platform. But at that point, it didn't matter to me. I needed an opportunity. I needed something new that wasn't advertising, and I needed to get a job. So I took this job. It was a really nice manager, and he brought me on board. And he actually had another opportunity at the same time for a UX writer. And because being in the Netherlands, it's not an English speaking country, and I'm a native English speaker, so I had this advantage of understanding English and being able to generate and create these ideas. I'd be replaced by ChatGPT in seconds nowadays, but so I kind of got to do these two roles, and the graphic design was super simple at that point. Maybe sometimes I'd create an icon, but it was really easy. In fact, I think I was doing a lot of banner headings for emails, and then that was fine, right? I was kind of down in the dumps about it because again, wasn't sure this is what I wanted to do. But surprisingly, this UX writing role gave me an opportunity to fully understand that spectrum of what UX is. Excuse me if any noise, my cat's going crazy in the background. But we'll get to your questions at the end, I think. But basically, got to do this UX writing, was able to see this process, but also to understand it. And I think this is really important for anyone, especially if you do a career change or anything else. You have knowledge, you have experience that is transferable and that you can start to relate to, right? So yes, we started to look at this UX, and you have this whole purist and kind of deep knowledge that's out there and speaks about, you need to understand your users and empathize and all of that. But I started to realize there's this deep, or there is a connection between that and what you do in advertising, because you need to relate to your target market, you need to understand them, and then you need to find a user strategy of what you create that will resonate and therefore impact business value and increase sales or something like that. So I actually started to feel a lot less lost, because I thought, hey, these things are quite similar and I can get on board here. So I was doing the UX writing, and I'm really grateful for taking that step backwards, because it's actually allowed me to move forwards a lot better. I could have tried to go and get a senior art director job or something like that if I had pumped my ego or felt like, I'm championing towards a creative director kind of role. But the truth was, I just wasn't fully satisfied. So taking this job that a couple of years before that I would probably have turned my nose up at, actually gave me the opportunity to onboard a lot of skills and to learn a lot about myself and build a lot of self-reliance. So that's step 2. And then what happened? How
many steps is remaining?
I'm not sure, Payman. I told you, math's not my
strength. Go ahead, joking.
But so taking that step and doing the UX writing, and then I actually think the next big thing that I did was start to build a design system with the design manager at the time. And that really also opened a bunch of eyes for me, because I was able to see how I'd always had this impression of design being perfect design and high quality design. But what I actually started to see with the design system was system design, where you're using one thing in multiple places and finding a way. It's not about being super fancy. There's a lot of practicality and pragmatism that comes to it with it. So took on that task of building that up, and built a good relationship with the design manager at the time, and he empowered me a lot to stretch out. And by building the design system, he actually was fully confident in my UI abilities at that time, which I had because I'd been a digital designer for an agency. But I think the point of me sharing that is that sometimes you have to build the trust, even if you already think that you know it, and you say, oh, well, I'm really good at UI already. But maybe you moved into a team and you can't just swagger in there and say, well, you should put me on the UI. Find ways to gently show what you're capable of, and people will love you for it and embrace you and give you more opportunities. Because one, they as a manager, seeing somebody that you're trying to bring up come up and improve, or even just suddenly seeing their talent blossom, that's rewarding for you as a manager, right? So there's that double side to it. So anyway, that team got a little bit smaller along the way, and I started to take on more UX jobs, and we had some researchers there, so I was able to learn a lot of perspectives around UX design and product. But the thing that really tipped it for me was our product at the time was we had a second product, which is a beta product that was just for one client and customer. And the company now wanted to take it further and let more people use it. The team at that point, the design team, was almost no one. It had been getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's also a trend that we see with smaller companies. But I got to work with a product owner at the time who was really, really great. And that was really when I switched from holding on to a little bit of that visual design and concern from the advertising days to understanding that the true strength and value of what I was doing was the business impact. And I was able to work with him and ask him silly questions, right? Things that you might feel ashamed to ask, but that really took me so much further, so much faster, and really helped. The relationship was great. He was great. He went on to become the head of product for the company. But this back and forth, and what was also great was him asking me questions, because I actually got to learn more by sharing knowledge with him than anything else, right? So yeah, took on that role, and then the company progressed and things changed, and took on a managerial role for design at that point, and started hiring people and things like that. And then at some point it was time to move on, so I moved on to Instruqt, and here we are today.
That's great. I'm taking notes out of your thoughts for the future to ask more questions.
Oh
Yeah, you're busted. And if you're
no.
going to go after an hour, you're really mistaken today. Um, you come from a different culture, different
Yes.
country. Even if they are like natively speaks English, the culture of each country, especially around the advertising, is so different based on the products. Um, this is also a challenge that Iranian designers has, and also we should consider that we write in a different language from a different side of the
Even
paper,
different
right?
symbols, right? So,
Yeah. It's a different characters, different language, different products, and different results.
yeah.
So I was wondering, when you came here, how was the adaptation of those foundation, your thoughts, because you learn from those designs and the advertising it and the UI you see there in your culture, right? And this is also, and I will just add something to it, if you want to talk about that too. A lot of people in Iran works in a company that naturally the language of that product is in Farsi, right?
Yeah.
So it's even hard for them to build a portfolio around that, because when someone like who speaks English see that, can get the like benefits or the good part of that UX or UI, because there are parts of difference. So, yeah, uh, tell me about the different of cultures and adaptation around that.
I'm just gonna jump onto bits that you said there. So I think there's a couple of things. One, everybody's culture is different, right? It's not just South Africans, it's and Iranians. It's the Dutch are different. There's a great book called The Culture Map, which can help you understand these different the cultures and how to interact and when not to be offended. I think that's super interesting. But your question is more about if you're, or I think the most valuable point in your question was about the portfolio piece, right? If I'm creating work in Farsi, in my culture and what's right for our user experience and our user behaviors, how can I use that to get hired in another country that may prioritize other things or think other things are more important? Is that correct?
Mm, not sure.
Is that a valid question to answer, perhaps?
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Of course.
All right, then let's go with that.
Yeah.
Because you're always right, Payman. You're always right. But I think the truth is that underneath all of it, you had to use your brain and figure out how to do something. You had to solve a problem, and it doesn't. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I don't know your culture, and I'm not from Iran, but you had to figure something out, right? You followed a process. You had conflicts. You had trade-offs. You made a design, and nobody built it, right? So your struggles as a designer are actually universal in a way. And if you can find a way to write that out and show that conflict and show how you maybe you had a technical constraint and you needed to work your design and change the flow a little bit to suit that constraint. That is valid throughout the world, right? That is actually what we're looking for, because at the end of the day, when you hire a resource, which is a person or a designer, you're hiring them for a purpose. And if they can show that they're capable of doing that, then I don't really care if you come from the moon, to be honest. You bring the value I need. So it doesn't matter if you got 8 arms or none.
Yeah. But the struggle, I think, here is that, well, you want to validate people's work and you want to see a portfolio from them, right?
Yes.
But and this is stressful, that if I'm sharing a portfolio in a different language and in different symbols, it's a different direction. If I see if I open like a, I don't know, Coolblue website in Dutch, right?
Yeah.
Still get the idea that, oh, this makes sense to me, that the structure. No, well, I could guess, oh, this is the log, this should be the login, and this should be the card. You know what I'm saying? And it's very different in a different language. So let me ask you this: you hire designers now, right? And interview with them. If someone from Iran would apply for a designer job at Instruqt, would you like to see well, let's say it's already it just has experience with Farsi websites on the work level for companies, but do you like to see portfolios with designs, cases studies, maybe like design systems, or just elements with like shots on Dribble that is on a, like English, or you will just count that Farsi design as something that you could judge on?
I mean, a design is a design, right? You can put up any artifact or visual that you want. It's the story behind it. I think there's a question here about challenges and conflicts, right? That's actually what I want to know about. So let's be pragmatic here. If you're applying to a job where you're going to have to work in English, it's the person. I can't evaluate your work if I can't read it, right?
Yep.
So if you are trying to it's the same as well, if you are trying to get a job in an English company, you need to provide that, whatever, even if you take your portfolio, rip out a couple of case studies or your best piece of work and just make a presentation on that one, do that.
Yeah.
But remember, just like in advertising, user experience, in just even this session that we're having now, you have to remember who your audience is, because that's actually what you need to craft around, because you need to understand them, and if you understand them, you're delivering the right type of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So basically, anyone who works with companies who has works a lot Farsi language, they still can, beside that, create portfolios which is in English to try to explain their quality of work. If they were successful in that language, they also can be successful, or show off their skills in English.
Yes, I think you
I
need to.
Why? But maybe UX has more like complex like spots that needs more knowledge.
Well, it's like this as well, right? So let's put the idea of cultures aside for a second and just think of industries.
Yeah.
If I'm a designer that works in fintech, I'm going to have a certain level of knowledge that I've built up around fintech, right? Some of that will be transferable, like we mentioned earlier. Any knowledge is transferable, and you can find ways to build on top of it and learn a new scenario and situation. But you have to try, right? Yeah. And that's all you can do, and just build on top of that.
Yeah. But before getting to comments, and before that list gets longer, what's your suggestion for designers to make the portfolios for themselves? Even for people who works in a company that has like an English product that is understandable to like everyone. It could be a really bad product and a really like ugly thing. The managers don't let that designer to shine, uh, don't give them freedom, or you go to a company, there is a bad design system and they say, oh, we already paid for that, we put effort for this, and you have to just use that. And there is a fear that this is not going to make impressions. What are your thoughts about like what's your guideline about creating something for yourself that could talk on your behalf, that this is me, I have the social, I have the like communication skills, this is, I work in these good companies, I can solve problems, you see the UX part, but I also have these skills?
So I think the first thing is to believe in yourself and to back yourself. Okay. And this actually rings quite true for me. So in that second role that I had, that I shared about at the company where I was doing the design and the UX, I was doing the design and UX there. And then at the same time, I was reading these articles from the Fang and Mang companies and these real, I wouldn't say purists, but this, even the boot camp sort of picture of what UX is. And I just, every time I was reading these articles just to try and learn something or whatever, but at the same time, I was getting more and more disheartened because at the company I was working at, we wanted to do research. They said, no, we've already paid for research. We've already done research. Just make the thing. And the truth is that you are actually going to find these scenarios at companies that are not really well established with solid processes and enough money to hire enough people to do every step in every journey. So the most important thing is to back yourself, not get disappointed or dissuaded or demotivated by what you think perfect is and what you think you should be. Just, you got to where you are for a reason. Trust yourself, build on it, make a small piece. It's the same. So yeah, trust it, build it, and go on it, right? So, but what I want to say as well is it's the same as writing a cover letter when you apply for a company, right? You have two approaches. You could just sit down, LinkedIn, find job posts and send your resume. Or you can sit down, find a couple of places that really resonate with you, write out crafted things and apply like that, right? And I know for anyone that's sitting on the other side of this information, that sounds incredibly daunting because now I've got to reshape the stuff to suit that company. Do the CV letter, find a way to write your the cover letter, and find a way to translate your portfolio into something that's easily digestible or changeable, right?
Yep.
And highlight the struggles and challenges that you went through. Again, at the end of the day, it's mainly about looking at your dependency, like how dependent and professional are you as a person, right? Are you going to show up to work? Are you going to try? So there's that. Then there's initiative, like how ambitious are you? How much are you going to take on for yourself? How much are you going to push and bring to the table without a manager having to walk behind you and encourage you to try harder? And then, so all these soft skills around it are actually really important and you can go quite far with it. And then it's just about being able to communicate how you achieve design, because there's no real right or wrong way of doing design. There is some best practices. There is stuff that proves really effective at certain companies. But the truth is there's no perfect way. This is a young career, right? It's younger than us. Unfortunately, you can see the grays. But you know, this occupation and space is evolving. So kind of, you can kind of make it your own as well. Take a chance, take a risk, design, treat your own self like a product, empathize, think about the user that's going to digest it, and make it out from there.
Yeah, I want to say I'm 100% sure that I think we talked about this before with Delano, that you are also choosing the company. It's not the one way. You need to know what the company is doing and you need to ask them questions, because tomorrow you get offered the first Monday, you go there and you don't know anyone, you don't know the process, and you get to a place that I hate this process. I don't like this. I don't like to work like this. So you can find that. That's how you get productive. The
Yeah.
process you're comfortable with, and a product you love to work on. That should be what matters. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to add on to that. I mean, there's also this thing of sometimes you need a job, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
this
Yeah, sure. Sure.
pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Uh,
that doesn't mean you
I'm
can't
just saying.
try.
Yes. I'm just saying that if you're in the process of finding a new job, and let's say there is no pressure of finding the first one tomorrow, uh, going into a dark place in a sense that you don't know what's going on there in a product, you don't know what to do with it, I think this is my assumption that it's way harder with the UI UX than being a developer. If you don't get there, you don't know, and it's a dark place that you don't see anything, you don't know anything, and you're just walking, trying to figure it out. It could be a bigger challenge than it should be. I don't think you're gonna lose and you're gonna be defeated, but it's a harder challenge, and it's
You,
way easier to just ask the question on interviews and follow the product to understand it. And also, I think it helps you get the product, get the job, because when you're talking to them, they also see, oh, you're interested, and you have a good perspective on it. This is a person who could work and add a value to the team.
yeah, you're 100%. In fact, that should be your first interactions, is showing interest in this company for yourself, but exactly as you say, payment for them. Because then I know you're interested in the job, not just a relocation package or some benefits or
Yeah.
something like that.
It doesn't mean that it shouldn't matter, but it just means that yes, I need a job. I love to move to another country, but between all these companies, I am really interested in your product and your team and your people, and would love to work with you. Yeah. Okay,
That,
sorry. Do you want to ask a few questions?
Yeah, and I think we have a question that perfect. I think it's perfect with the topic that you were talking about. John Doe, he's asking that which red flags, if you see in a company's culture, you won't work for. You can tell us some examples. That would be great.
thanks. Great question, John Doe. Um, it's actually really tricky to try and figure out red flags, right? So there are some along the way. There's usually it's wording in a CV. So there's things like okay with ambiguity and flexibility, or like that is, and these I would say they're orange flags, because you should always ask why or what's the motivation, or try and see. But yeah, it's these strangely worded things. It's, I don't know if you know this, but realtors, people who are trying to sell houses, they have
Mm-hmm.
ways of saying things differently. So
Mm.
if it's a house that's really run down and falling apart, they call it a fixer upper or full of
Oh.
potential. So yeah,
Yeah.
so you need to kind of look at these words and try and read what they're actually trying to saying into it. Another one that I find quite interesting, and maybe these are, you're asking about company culture. I guess I'm focusing highly on design and UX here. So I'll broaden it in a second. But another red flag for me is when you see the job description for UX designers or product designers, and it's almost a carbon copy of something somewhere else, right? It's like this list of to-dos rather than what impact or value you're bringing. So that's a red flag for me. Um, anything where they're kind of suggesting that you need to work extra hours
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
is a massive red flag for me. I have played that game in my life. I have worked extra hard and worked over times. But at the end of the day, you're just stealing from yourself in a way, because that's your time, and you work 24 hours, no sleep, stay at the company all night. Sure, people are grateful for what you do, but a year down the line, it doesn't mean anything. But now maybe you missed out on an opportunity to go meet someone great or have dinner with your parents or whatever. So
True.
that would definitely be a red flag for me.
I work with a company that in job description it has a thing. sentence says that there is no work-life balance. There is only life. And I was like, these people care.
Or were they implying that work is life?
No, 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 no. It actually meant I worked there. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
no. It was just saying that not even a balance is enough nowadays, based on all the problems with the mental health, burnouts, and these kind of things. All matters. Life, the works comes with it.
Yeah, it does. I think something on that point, right? 8 hours today versus 8 hours 50 years ago was completely different. The amount you do in 8 hours now is insane. So we're always, as a community, as a worldwide culture, trying to reach a higher level of productivity.
Yeah,
But we've got to remember that we're already doing so much more than maybe we should naturally, right?
yeah, yeah,
Some other red flags is just, especially in UX and stuff, is ask deeper questions. You may not see them immediately, but ask questions. See if they have a process. See if they're talking to users or if they're just doing things. See if they don't have a North Star and a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
That's also pretty red flag for me. And then it's up to you if you want to embrace it or not, and go in there and maybe that's an opportunity for you, right? Maybe now you can help them set that. But if you're looking for more strict and laid out way to go, then it's a red flag.
I
yeah.
see. Yeah, great.
Even if it's not red flag, you at least have enough information to decide on.
Yes.
True. Yeah. Another question by Milo. So the question is, do you consider AI a real threat for UX designers?
No, not really. Not right now, to be honest. I think if we actually look at there's hype, right? So tech runs on hype. So this AI hype is being built up, and I definitely think it helps you, and you can use it to make your day easier and get things done. But I actually think it's just opportunity. Maybe it's opportunity for UX designers to go out and build the AI tools that will replace them. But no, right now I don't think it's going to replace you at all, because someone would have to know what to ask and how to prompt it, right?
Yeah,
They would have to
yeah,
understand that skill set. It's the same as saying, is AI going to replace developers? Where it's already having a much bigger impact with Copilot and all of these additional tools. But the truth is that it's actually just taking away more of your mundane tasks, and it's now your role is to actually be an expert. And it's like AI for me is like having an army of interns. They're going to do a lot of work for you, but there might be quite a few mistakes in there, and you need to be vigilant, and you need to go and get on it and have that expertise to spot it. So no, I don't think it's a real threat at all right now, to be honest. It's not really AI either, right? It's just language models.
True. And there's a question that probably I need some help from him on. As iOS developers, I have problem with design. I need to know, are there any way to design app as develop, for example, using design system? If yes, can you suggest any resource? I think he wants some kind of like books resource, so he learns on that.
I think it's a point of how developers can get better with design.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
So I see it as two ways. Either it can be how can developers get better at design, or it's as a developer, I want to make something myself. The problem is design. Design gets in the way. So is there a way for me to maybe automate that or to replace that, right? So, just going and looking at libraries and frameworks and things like that can already help you. I mean, it's very, it's almost kind of, it's a celebrity, Google, right? But going off and looking at Google material design, I found that to be incredibly educational when I was trying to onboard and come across. And because material design focuses on a few flat colors and just then having the components, it just uses colors and quite simple design, and you get away with a lot, and it looks pretty good, right? So yeah, I would start there. It also depends what you are trying to do. If you're trying to learn more about visual design, or if you're trying to understand interaction design and flows and how things work, or if you're trying to just make a nice product yourself without designers.
I think there is a problem here, and the problem is there are lots of design systems and like component libraries out there that you open there is like, okay, this is a button, okay, this is a modal, but the main thing is to how you, if you have an idea, if you want to make something, how you could merge this to get to a point that this works at least as a good level and not broken. So even with the material design, yeah, they are explaining that you should try to choose color based on these, and also for like mobile, let's say yes, this is the current pattern of Android. That this is the bottom bar, this is the top bar, this is how you handle the menu. But other than that, because uh, there's not a lot of good apps that you download that follows those things. The good apps are more creative than that.
Well, I tend to disagree. I mean, first let's define what's a good app, but we're not going to. But
No,
if you,
I mean, like, yeah. Well, forget about that point. But I mean, there's a lot of creativity around designs that not every like app follows that, like Material or iOS design language.
that's true, and if you forget about the specifics of material design or a specific design language, what you can see though is that a lot of products are actually looking the same, right? Do that. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, especially if your goal is to make an awesome product that's solving a problem. Don't worry about making the coolest, most creative design. Make your product, because that's what you wanted to do. And once that's out there, then you know, and you can tweak it, then you can add it, then you can train yourself up on Figma. I mean, you can go into Figma and find UI kits, right?
Yep.
And they're either a great starting place that you can just drag and drop them and then code it how you want, or you can use it to learn a little bit of design. But at the end of the day, don't let design be a blocker for you, and just copy. Just copy, steal, copy, right? I don't know the saying exactly, but like great artists don't copy, they steal, or something like that. I can't remember.
It was something like that.
Yeah. But steal. But yes, I can share some links with the team after this, and then
Sure.
you're welcome to check it out.
Yes, that's great. Awesome. Next question is by Max. So Max is asking, how do you handle challenges and conflicts with developers along the road while designing your product? What do you suggest to developers with regards to that?
Oh no.
So me and Payman work together. He is a developer. We have constant back and forth discussions about things. I think that it's about understanding the challenges and the conflicts that arise are usually there because there's a difference of opinions. There's a designer wants to achieve something and a developer has another perspective on it, right? The truth is you both have valuable information. You should try and find a way to discuss it and figure it out, right? Look for the root cause of the conflict. If your developer is pushing back really, really hard about something, there's probably a reason there. Go find out what that reason is. Ask them, talk to them, let them express their idea. I cannot tell you how many times, I think it happens every single day, and it's because I have such a great team, but I put something out there and they come back with new ideas, add additions to it, ways to simplify it, ways to make the user experience better. Sometimes I actually feel a little bit, these guys are better at UX and design than I am, right? So it's really good. I think that number one thing to do is don't feel threatened. Don't feel like your idea versus their idea. Feel like this is a conversation, and you now need to find a way to see what's right and what's possible, right? And always go to that why underneath, because that's going to help you move forward. Don't just butt heads. Talk it out. Communication, like all relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. And developers, oh, sorry, one more thing. My manager has this philosophy that he's been sharing with us, and it's about approaching things with curiosity, right? So as soon as you see conflict or anything like that, or anything, don't attack it. Ask why. And as a designer, that is half your job anyways, so practice.
Interesting. And we have Amir. He has some kind of reflection. So it's like even backend developers need to have a bit of expertise in UX. Like weird. It's like this comment.
Well, if I may, that sparks for me is like I just said, the developers are providing really good user experience, right? Developers are some of the people in the world that use the most amount of software and products and things like that. Yes, they can lose sight of dummies like myself who need a button to click and can't use the command line, but as developers, you have serious knowledge about how products work and how to interact with them. So check what your first thoughts are, because you probably have a little bit of expertise already, Amir.
Yeah, and next question is about finding a designing or marketing position in the EU is getting hard every day, especially when you do not know the host country language. Do you have any advices for job seekers to increase their chance?
I think you put your finger right on it, right? You need to know that language. You need to know at least a level of I'm going to say English, but whatever the professional language is at that place that you're applying, you need to have a good enough grasp. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be able to Shakespeare away and make everyone swoon, but you need to be able to communicate, right? We have or I know a gentleman that I've worked with in the past, and he wasn't very confident about his language, but he's so smart. He's so deeply knowledge and so capable. So a little bit of practice on your language will offer you a chance to express yourself really well. And you have value even though you can't express it in English, right? And I was saying to the team just before, but poo on them if they can only speak one language, right? You as tech immigrants usually have no 2 or 3 language, and this is super impressive. So yeah, just back yourself and practice it. Practice the speaking.
Thank you. And last question about Farid again. So he's saying that with salary for 30 plus people required in NL, Netherlands, do you suggest spending time for finding a position in a non-engineering job like PhD marketing or design? I think by 30 plus, like for people who are above like 30, is that the age?
Yes. So I think what this means is that you have to earn a certain salary range
Yeah.
over a certain age. I don't know. I mean, this question is almost suggesting that the salary and relocation is more important than your profession. In a way, I guess it's up to you if you feel like you think you should take a different type of job, right? I know Payman used to be a designer and he's now an engineer. So I think that's up to you, and what motivates you, right? If your main motivation is to move to the Netherlands, then do what you need to do to move to the Netherlands, right? But you may find yourself incredibly unhappy, right, in a couple of years. So only you can really answer this question about what's important and what you want to do.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, there is no questions left, and we have 10 minutes of the webinar. We go back to Paymon.
Just 10 minutes?
Yeah, we are already like talk like for 50 minutes.
Okay.
Go longer if you need.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me about now? I like to get to the hiring process of your experience. Can you tell me when you're reviewing your resume, what you're looking for, what's red flag to you, and what is actually like a standout feature you see?
So in my time, I've hired different types of people for different types of roles, right? So that's important as well. So there's two examples that I can give here. One, I needed to hire a senior product designer. I needed somebody in the team who could help me and take some workload, right? So when I was looking at this resume, I was looking for somebody who I thought, based on what they were showing, had a level of maturity and self-motivation and was able to think for themselves, right? All of this will depend on the job you're applying for, size of the team you're applying for, etc. Right? So you need to when I'm looking at a resume, I'm usually keeping that role in mind. What you can do to improve it is, so often I see people just listing their responsibilities. That's not very helpful, right? As a designer, we've all got this kind of common responsibility in a way. There'll be some overlap. I could have just pulled that off the internet, whatever. Find a way to write what you did into an impact, right? So there's lots of formats out there that can help you. I think even Smart, which is the Google, or Heart, which is the Google format for writing these things. It's about showing some form of impact on what you've done. And that's usually what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that sort of ability to communicate your value, right? Yeah. You must find a way to communicate your value, because that's going to help you not only in getting a job, but also then applying for promotions and salary increases. Was there more to your question?
Yeah. What are the red flags that you see?
The red flags.
Yeah.
So again, a red flag should often just be an orange flag, so you can ask more questions about it. But a red flag is, and again, it depends on the position. But if I'm looking for a senior and I'm just getting juniors or people straight out of college, that's not the role I'm trying to fill right now. I'm usually probably looking for somebody that can help me carry a certain level of weight. So yeah, it's really dependent on that. Not having a portfolio for me is an instant dismissal, because I'm not able to create a good assessment of you already, because the portfolio covers so many things. It covers your ability to create visuals. It covers your ability to communicate a story. It also shows a level of organization, because you have a portfolio, right? I've also run into that problem of not having a portfolio, because as designers, at the end of the day, I don't want to do that portfolio. I'd rather do some other kind of project or something like that.
Is there any difference of type of portfolios, like between a personal website, a Dribble account, or Behance, or anything? Young kids do this. Oh no.
A TikTok portfolio.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that's great.
Well, next day, tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, well, that might work, right? It's on mobile. The hiring managers can look quickly. You can go through it. You can tell stories. It's not a bad idea.
Get distracted. It's an hour later. What was I doing?
No, there's no real. It doesn't really matter to me. So it depends on the role. So for example, I was looking for a role for a Webflow designer, somebody to just specifically work on Webflow, to create Webflow sites for us. And in that case, let's just say it was a double green flag if I saw that your portfolio was built on Webflow, and then I could see that it was you that built it, right?
Yeah.
But for product designers, no, not really, because one, I empathize with them. I understand that, creating a portfolio is quite difficult. Then to get it turned into a personal website is quite an undertaking, especially because you're only applying for a job, well, every couple of years, right? So doing that is a lot of work. It's definitely something that makes me stop and take an extra second to look at what you've done. But Really, it's about the content, not the delivery mechanic.
Yeah, but even on the content side, well, it's a bit different on Dribble now. You can add more, like multiple attachment and add more content to it. But like years ago when I was young, it was more like Dribble was just one shot and a title, and Behance was like a house for case studies, right? So is that different to you? You like to see the thinking process and like the people showing, like explaining the reason behind that, or no, this is a result, looks good. Let's talk more.
I think you need a dribble shot inside of your case study. So you need that flashy image or something that's quite
Yep.
nice. It doesn't have to be there,
Yep.
but just that on its own, I'm closing it. One, I don't know you made that, right? You've not shown me anything that suggests you made that. At least tell me a
Yeah.
little bit story about how it's your favorite color or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So no, just a good visual by itself means nothing to me. Generally, I'm looking for to see if you can work in the workplace. So I'm looking at your design skills, but I'm also looking if I dump you in a team with developers and product managers and all these loud voices trying to pull you in many ways and make your life difficult and wonderful, are you going to cope and are you going to be able to bring the value I need you to bring?
Yeah.
And because at the heart of it, design is actually about asking questions and communication, telling a story.
Yeah.
Often I don't even create a design. I just connect people and ideas and information, right? So I find out why we need something or how it's done. And then the developers like to talk, so they end up creating the UI in some ways. So
Yeah.
in that portfolio, I'm really looking for you to communicate your professional value and how you approach the work you do.
That's amazing. But it's a really good point about communication. But just to everybody knows, I think you're a um, really good at communication, and also volunteer at every volunteer at every topic. As I see, like I'm not that person to talk to the managers and the designers and the PMs and the clients, like the customers. But you're like that. You are thirsty for every possible idea of information, and you have crazy Miro boards that whenever you send me one, I never understand them. I can't follow them, but I see that how much information is on your head, and I think you're a good example of how someone can be good at communication and like get some information, give to someone else, and bring everyone together to solve a problem and make a better product.
That comes with practice, right? So I wasn't always like that. I'm actually deeply introverted. And for a lot of my life, my biggest difficulty was I felt I couldn't express myself properly. And the way to get there is, or the way that I found myself getting there was twofold. One, learn to ask questions, not to talk, because listening helps you learn and you start to see how people phrase it. And you can go so far just by asking one word, why, right? Or because people will talk. Look how much talking I'm doing with each of your questions, right? You hardly have to do anything. So learn to ask questions and keep asking those questions and be okay feeling like an idiot. Feel okay asking questions you think may be stupid. And then at the heart of it, right? So that's a nice vision to be able to communicate and bring all of these different groups and information and everything. But you're right, that's not always achievable, especially if you're doing it in a language that's not your own.
Yeah.
At the very minimum, practice explaining your design decisions. That's all already, right? So you put your Dribble post up, okay? You don't want to write a full thing story about it, but write one paragraph. Explain something that you did in there. Explain one point where you had to maybe stop or think, or you had a eureka moment, something clicked for you and it just went out. So just in a small thing, write out your design decisions and how they work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Before getting to the comments again, I want to ask something about the design systems. Um, do you think I have a follow-up question, but let's start with this. Do you think having design systems and creating those are making things easier, uh, like for now, or you're just predicting to have more difficult times in the future based on like if you're working in a startup and designing design system, then in the future there would be like big pivots, and maybe you're making a design system gets obsolete and you can follow that because then your UX won't work with the new criteria of the product and the features it has.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Are you asking specifically design systems at a company, or are you asking design systems as a whole for open source
No,
communities and
for companies that
companies?
like what I see, I was at one time what I see people are like designers really like to get a chance to create the design systems. It's a dream for a lot of people, but
Well,
sometimes I think that are we solving problems?
it's a great question. I think there's a love for it from a designer because it's actually quite a big thing. It's foundational. It's something you can really put your headphones on and just do, right? I think we all enjoy that moment and that flow and that time.
Yep.
But as a design lead, sitting down and saying, do we need a design system? You need to make sure that it's solving problems, right? So there's a benefit. There are multiple benefits to design systems. Two of them, it's a form of automation for designers and for developers, right? Two of them are consistency and speed. Those are the two benefits, because your product stays consistent. Anyone can pick up something and know which things to use. But like you say, there may be a time where the product changes. So with any type of automation, you need to decide whether the upfront time you're going to sink into making this design system is going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, you can do a small design system, you can do a basic design system. And that will have a huge impact in itself already, but you won't be too stuck or restricted. There's also that challenge of being restricted. Like, you need to learn to think and see a situation and read the context and decide, okay, this is repeatable components, or we actually need to create something new. In life, like with everything, you need to think, right? You can't just follow a rule just because it's there. You must always challenge that. So there's that side to it. But I personally really enjoy design systems because it helps me just make out a flow. And like I said, that's kind of where I'm starting to prefer to sink my time at this point.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, the best days are when no one talks to me. I just listen to my music and I make designs, right? And those are great and fun and massive moments, but you need to know how to use that design system. And you,
As few as they are,
sorry?
as few as they are those days.
Yeah, well, I think that depends on your role and what you like to
Yeah.
do as well.
You talked about one of your companies you were working for. There was a UX department. I don't know how big it was, but how do you see working for a small companies or startup versus a big company, really big company?
I can only tell you from assumptions and just opinions, because I have not worked at a very big company in a very big design team. In the marketing and the advertising, that's kind of a different equation. And even then, the team was quite small for design. I think it depends, Payman. Like, are you coming from a big company trying to go to a startup, or are you going from a startup to a big company? Because I think either way, you're in for a culture shock in some way, a corporate culture shock.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to being, it's the same as the design system. Think for yourself, right? You may have learned one way of working at startups or at a big company, and then you go to the opposite. You need to apply what you can and
Yep.
learn and think how to adapt. You can't just go in there and say, this is how I've behaved my whole life, so this has to work here. Then you're going to be miserable. You have to adapt to the team you're in and then incrementally improve or build the process you want.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you want to take a few comments?
Yeah, sure, but we have already like talked for 1 hour, like 5 minutes.
Sure.
Like
No,
okay,
up to
great.
you. It's your
Yeah,
it's your
that's
session.
great. Yeah, great. So the Cameron, he's asking that do you have any experience opinion on UI UX for video games and how does it differ?
I have not worked in the video game industry. I think that actually user experience, because of how interactive video games are, and they've been around for actually longer than interactive websites in a way, I actually think UX is stronger there. I think the practice and the thinking and the processes around it, right? Because you build out this game that you're going to ship, and only recently now can you do live updates. Before that, that was it. That was the game. So you
Yeah.
had to get that right, right? That's why they have these huge testing departments, and they have like sessions where they're trying to break the game. And I guess I would take that from UX things. Break your design. Go to the edge cases. Put the 9,999,999 in there rather than your 300, which is pretty, right? So yeah, that's all I can really share, Kamran, is that I think there's a deep level of learning there, and I think that it's ahead of the game in a way than product design. But it wasn't as commercialized, and it's got its own caveats and own way of going and behaving and what's important. But a lot, well, I think gamification, right? Just gamification in itself is based on that dopamine hit of completing tasks and things like that. So that's a good cross. But no, I don't really have any knowledge. This is all just because I like video games.
Oh, you like video games?
Oh yes, of course.
What
Still
kind of
waiting for
games?
Silk Song.
Oh, what do you play? Shooting games?
No, I'm more of a platform kind of guy.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know Hollow Knight, but that's my all-time favorite at the moment. Dead Cells is pretty good as well. I like the abuse and the constant failure. Yeah. But I'm not a FIFA fan like Payment.
We'll learn one day and we will play.
Man,
Oh,
when I was growing up, my friends crushed me at it all the time, so I think I've just given up deep down inside.
interesting. And next question by Irfan. He's asking what are best easy to use AI tools that product designers can use? Maybe talk about the tools you use on daily basis.
So I use ChatGPT quite often. I'm also doing a dual role where I'm a product manager, so this really helps me. And this can help everybody with their communication, right? So you can also use it to practice conversations. You can say, please be the hiring manager. So that's a really good one. And really, it's up to your imagination how you can use it to make your life easier. But I use that one quite often, especially for as I say, I'm king of typos, so cleaning up my text and making sure it's presentable and professional, and mom would be proud. So I use that. I don't do a lot of image creation for the product work that I do today, but if you're doing your own product or making your own designs, you can get some really good images. I think we all know Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion, but one that I really like, which is free and has nice controls and actually quite an interesting user experience and design in itself, is called Leonardo.ai. That one's quite cool. But and there's also something I saw the other day called Imagica.ai. So that's I haven't dived into it yet, but I really want to. That's supposed to be an AI where you converse and you can build out a product. So bye bye needing to worry about. It's like a low code but using AI, right? So that's quite cool. But like the lack of tools that are really going to help you with your UX tasks in particular, like shows that we shouldn't be too worried yet. Yeah. So I use the text-based ones to clean up stuff and make sure that other people can process my information.
Yeah, your Miro boats.
Miro has AI in it. Notion has AI in it for brainstorming and things like that. You can use it, but I would say that's mainly your starting point. Get it going, but then use your own expertise to build on top of it.
I would use those to just make content longer. So that, I put more time on this than you think.
But the thing is, the longer your content or the more, like the Miro boards, the less people read it. So use it the other way. Use it to make your stuff shorter and to the point.
Yeah.
True. And again, a question by Irfan. Do you really read cover letters when hiring?
I do. I think they're very important in a way. And I'm not going to disqualify somebody if it doesn't arrive, but if somebody has provided a cover letter that I can see, even if they just did a quick look at what this company is about and added it in there, they've already shown me some level of interest in the company, right? So I'm already more intrigued to talk to them or connect with them. It's not foolproof. You could provide your cover letter, but your CV and not have a portfolio for something else. But I find them quite beneficial. They also help me understand your communication, right, style and how you're doing. So yeah, I do read them.
Interesting. And Moshtaba is asking, how much can knowledge of a Dutch language attract companies to relocate developers, especially in this competitive situation?
I think the companies that are going to help you relocate are probably English-speaking companies anyway. So having the Dutch language is actually not that relevant. Yeah. So I would just work on being able to express. I wouldn't take on a whole nother language if you're already learning English as well.
I mean, there are companies who wants people who speaks Dutch. They have a product only in Dutch. They're rare. It's not like a common thing, especially in Netherlands with all the big tech companies. But yeah, sometimes you're kind of in a very rare lane of people who can apply for that job.
That's true. Maybe it'll open you up, but you're at that point competing with the talent that is Dutch and in the local pool, right? But you're right. There are companies that want a level of Dutch, but you would need to have kind of a business level Dutch. So that's quite a tough task. I struggle with language.
But we also need to think about it. Learning Dutch is really hard. It's not like you could start now and 6 months later or 1 year later. You could speak in the business level and maybe write UX at that level. So if you know it, I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
But learning it is useful. I hear that about any language. I heard that in Turkey. I heard that here that when people, I think it goes with every country. The people hear you talking their language, they're like open to that. They accept you like easier, that you like to live here and you want to learn the culture, you want to get into the society, or I don't know what to say about it, but yeah, I think it's helpful to actually learn at least in a basic level, not for the job, but as a thing that I don't have any problem living in a different country.
You're 100% right. It's a sign of respect in a way, right? Even if I go on holiday to another country, I at least try and learn the hello, goodbye, and thank you, and please, depending on my mood. But it's a sign of respect, and people immediately start to open up to you because you're taking a step to kind of bond with them, right? So you're 100% right, Payment. I mean, you can see it in our company sometimes. We have a lot of Dutch management, and if you maybe use a couple of Dutch words, they get quite excited, right? Because
Yeah.
they're working in a language that's not their own as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Even with the good morning, I see
yeah,
the eyes like lighten up. Yeah. Yeah. I
it's
agree. I agree.
it's really respectful. It's great.
Interesting. How to say good morning in Dutch?
Goedemorgen.
Goedemorgen.
So cool.
It's really easy for Iranians because it's basically khe. And we say that very easy, but others can't. It's hard for them. But yeah, it's easier for us if we want to learn. It's basically khe.
Yeah, indeed. Like even the cities like Groningen, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And the rolling R. So you need to say rrr.
Yeah.
Interesting. And the next question is by Muslim. He's asking, do you pay attention to metric in the resume and why?
Yes, I do. So kind of what we stated a little bit earlier is what you're putting inside of your resume, you can either just put a responsibility or you can say how you did something and it had an impact. Now, as designers, sometimes it's quite difficult to measure your thing, your impact, especially if you're at a company where the data isn't fully embraced, right? Or created, or you're working on projects that are so quick that you never get a chance. But I do look at it because it helps me see that you already know that your work is about impact, right? It's not just you did something, it's you did something for a purpose and it had an effect. And that's really what I'm trying to understand, because I want you in my team to have an effect, right? I want you to do better than I'm doing. So I do rely on those things.
Yeah. And also, if you add a metric to your resume, be ready to talk about it in your interviews because you have to defend it.
Yeah. And if you don't have a metric, that's okay, but try and find another way to voice the impact of what you did.
Yep.
Like, even if it's the intent behind the project, that's also okay. And then in the interview, you can explain why, there was no tracking, or you left before the data came through, or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. And we don't have no more comments, but I have a question. You're coming from South Africa. Like,
Yes.
how is life is there? It's really interesting. I think as a Iranian, we cannot go there because of our weak passport.
I'm not sure.
But Payman, do you have any information?
I don't know. The list of countries we can go is very short. I should be able to memorize it, but I don't know at the moment.
Yeah, basically, how is life there? It's really interesting.
Well, I haven't been there in 7 years. It's got a lot of good. Well, I mean, I've visited my family and things, but I haven't lived, right? And Europe is incredibly functional. Things work here. But South Africa is beautiful. The people are beautiful. It's fun. It's happy. There's a lot of negative on it. There's a lot of challenges that the country is going through. And it can vary depending on your income, and I mean, half our population is under the poverty line, right? Is unemployed. So life can be quite difficult for most of the country, and they're doing their best. But the like I say, they're happy. There's this family. There's this camaraderie. There's a level of engagement and wanting to just talk and to help you out and things like that. So that's pretty great. The nature is fantastic. Like, the nature is in your city, right? It's with you in everything you do. So I mean, if the world sorts itself out and you ever get a chance, I really suggest going there. It's really a wonderful and beautiful place, especially to visit. We have a few trials, so we have things that we call it load shedding, because we don't have enough electricity for everybody to have electricity all the time. So people get shut down, and you don't have electricity to 4 to 6 hours. So there's a lot of structural stuff in South Africa that needs to change. But as for people and a place, it's beautiful. I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we got another comment.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Irfan is asking, does the number of companies I work for matter in the experience section of the resume, aside from years of experience?
No, I don't think so. I don't judge someone on that. Like I say, the role I'm looking for usually equates to a certain level of experience. Sometimes you get people that have less experience, but they're just really good. So you want, right? But me personally, I've worked for 3 companies my whole life, right? This is
Mhm.
over a decade. So it would be super hypocritical for me to do that. So no. And I actually be curious about what prompted this question, because I don't think working
This
in
question comes from like people work for a long time for one company, and some people like see that as, oh, he doesn't have much experience with different cultures, and also it's just one product, so it's not expandable to say that, oh, he has 5 years of experience, for example. I don't know, this is what I saw. I don't know what alpha means, but actually, but this is what I saw before in our Telegram group, people saying.
if that's the case, I personally wouldn't have that opinion. You could be in one place and do so much, right? You could become the head of the head of the head, or you could have delivered 6 amazing projects that did really had a really big impact. So
Yeah.
I don't think your worth is really built into that. And if I'm just going to build on something, an assumption that's in my head, but I've worked at a company that had an American affiliate, and there, the longer you spent at the company, the more respected you were, right?
Mm.
So there's also this old culture of staying at one company and the new culture of hopping and job hopping. I'm
Yeah.
actually more triggered if somebody has spent less than a year at a company. And one is fine, but if you have 4 or 5 companies where you've been there for a year or less, I I'm concerned. I need to know why, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the next comment.
Exactly.
Exactly same thing. So read this.
Yeah, for a short amount of time.
I'm not going to disqualify you immediately, but I'm already on edge, and I'm going to ask you a question of why this is the case. But if this is your culture, and that's what your country, that's how work works there, then just explain that, right?
Yeah.
Explain. You have the opportunity, the same as you're judging the company and trying to do it. You have an opportunity to explain yourself.
I think this is a really big problem here, Alex, that a lot of people have the fear, and a lot of times it's true that you have some form of resumes with like just one company, or a couple with a short amount of time, or like any other example we could talk about, that you call like yellow flag and not red flag.
Yeah,
But there is also this fear that you don't get the chance to explain that situation.
that
That's
is,
the biggest problem, and like the fear you carry when you're finding looking for a job.
and that's real, right? The unfortunate thing about the world is that people have biases, and they act on them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's ways around that. I think, especially in the Netherlands, you have a right to ask for why they didn't follow up with you, or why you didn't make the cut.
yeah,
And if they're willing to share, like, we were concerned about that year, you can reach out to the hiring manager and say, listen, that's just how it works here in Iran, and there's nothing wrong with that, and let me show you how valuable I am. And
yeah,
maybe it wasn't your fault you moved, or whatever, but you're that fear. The truth is, sometimes you'll face difficulty, and unfortunately people will act on their bias, and sometimes someone will give you a chance or see it as a thing. For me, I wouldn't just immediately throw you out the window because you've gone from job to job, but I'm going to ask,
yeah.
right? And I need to hear a good answer, and if it sounds like rubbish, then I'm not going to follow through with you.
Yeah, I think I want to make 2 points. First, that always ask for feedback,
Yes.
even if it's like a no reply. If they don't respond to you, don't get discouraged. Always ask for feedback. Maybe there is someone nice enough to respond to you, and you get something out of that. And also, I think about explaining and like trying to make a better sense, a better picture out of yourself. Use the cover letter
Yes.
to give more context, because that's the place that you could get more personal and explain who are you, and what did you did, and what was the reason behind it.
That's a really good point, actually. Use that as a way to, I don't know if you've seen the movie 8 Miles. So that's the story about Eminem, right? And at one point, there's a rap battle that he's now going to have to face this opponent, and this opponent is just going to wipe the floor with him.
Yeah.
So what he does is he comes out in front of that opponent, and he basically does everything that guy was going to say. So if you can, on your cover letter, say, listen, I've worked at several different companies and I've spent a short amount of time there. These are why I've spent a short amount of time, but this is the advantage it brought for me, right? I was able to gain many cultures. I was able to see different processes. I was able to see how things work and come together. So that is a really great point, Payman. Use that cover
That's a
letter.
good example. I would never forget that. Every now and then, that clip comes to my like YouTube recommendation. I always watch it, but yeah, I never looked at it uh, from that point.
That's
Yeah,
so great.
I think we have a surprise comment here that you
Yeah,
want
so many
Yeah,
felt.
yeah, we have the last comment by Eric. Like, how hard is it moving and working in a tech company in a foreign country?
I think you mean difficult, Eric. You should work on that English. No, I'm just kidding. We know Eric, so I'm giving him a hard
Yeah,
time.
we're gonna pay for that tomorrow.
But I mean, for me, it was 7 years ago. But I think for anyone starting a new job itself is a difficult thing, right? Whether it's in your home country or somewhere else. So that's already difficult. Then you've got to adapt to new cultures and and languages. So that's also quite tough. Um, but I think for me, so there's also this thing about managing stress. There's a lion or a gazelle, right? And the lion is chasing a gazelle. Now they are both stressed. They both have heightened levels of cortisol and things like that. But the uh, the deer or the gazelle is in panic mode, right? It's nervous, it's anxious, and that's stealing your thinking power because your blood and the way your body operates is different. But if instead you face it like a challenge and you're excited about it, then that's you can use that energy to your advantage because everyone's going to be nervous and anxious about doing this, but see it as an exciting thing, see it as a challenge, and you're really going to enjoy it and go much further.
Can I add something to it?
Yeah, of course.
So it's already hour and a half, so tell me now you're free to go. Just tell me when you want to go. But when you move to another country, at first you need to register for address. You need to get your BSN. You need to look for a house. You still at the hotel. You need to find between your job to go look for the house. So you are meeting a lot of new people, and it's a lot of pressure. But I think it would be a good practice just to relax a bit. All these professional companies, like in these countries that are successful because of the culture, they all care about the culture, and I think you should give yourself a chance that you don't have to prove yourself the next afternoon, like after the tomorrow after your first day at the job. Relax, and if you put more pressure, you're gonna make more mistakes and you're gonna get more frustrated. Just relax. There's a lot of things to do, and the company with a good culture that you probably found that by asking them questions and do the research and like finding people and the events they do and see how they treat people. You will notice that if it's a good culture, you're in good hands. Just relax, everything gonna be fine.
Yeah, and there's a comment by Eric. He says like, Raymond, you could use the cover letter to explain why if you wanted to.
Uh, what, Eric? I don't know. Find another job at this point. I don't know if you could write a full question, or it's a joke. I don't get it. Sorry. That's just how stupid I am at this point.
Yeah, we have already talked for 1.5 hours. Like, no wonder. And you had a really busy day today. Yeah,
It was a good day.
yeah, and we got 3 more questions. Should we point out our freelance projects, or does working in companies just count?
Anything you do, freelance is even better because it shows a level of self reliability and self-management and self-initiative, because being a freelancer is incredibly tough. So respect to you. Anything you do, freelance, real work companies that you do, a thing you made for your community or some sort of team around you, or passion projects, share anything. Just share your process and how you think and approach things. Share your passion, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a great point. And Yusuf is asking, do you have any restriction on hiring aged people? What's age restrictions? Do you consider it when reviewing resumes?
No, this doesn't concern me. It's the same as where you're from, right? You could be from the moon and 6,000 years back. If you have shown that you're capable of doing the job, you're capable of doing the job. I think where sometimes, I mean, tech is incredibly ageist, right? The industry is ageist, so it's a valid question. Again, you're going to find some people are less and some people are more. Something that I have heard from managers or hiring managers is often they are concerned that somebody that's older may be too set in their ways or may not bring a level of passion. And I think that that's a stereotype that is unfair, to be honest. You should judge everybody at their level at that time, right? If someone can do the job and they fit your budget and everything's right, who cares? Really, who cares? I don't like hanging out and having beers, to be honest. So it's even better for me, right? Because I know they've probably got a family and they also have a home life. So I don't know, maybe better.
And Muslim is asking, what's your definition of senior, mid-level, and leader?
That's a good question. I think it varies depending on company and what's needed, right? But I would say the senior title and that part, because I mean everybody just adds it to their CV now. I think it's the same even with engineers, right? Everyone's a senior engineer at this point. For me, what I'm truly looking for when I see senior is incredible self-management, motivation, ability to handle stakeholders, and it's all the soft skills around it, right? Your communication is really good, and then just level that up. Like as a leader, you then need to be able to have even more difficult conversations. I think difficult conversation, the better you are at difficult conversations, the higher that level, because you're able to, convince your CEO about why UX is important. Now that's valuable. A junior or a mid-level is probably focusing on those more delivery skills at that point, right? Getting good, creating the artifacts, doing the interviews and things like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is about how you can help people below you as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much. I have asked all of the questions. Thank you to Paymon and to you for this awesome webinar, and I bet we have learned a lot.
Thank you so much for having me and for being such great hosts, and for all our listeners and their amazing questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers, peeps.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm not sure how to leave. Oh, there we go. Bye.
Yeah.